Welcome to this in-depth look at the new operator amps. I'll cover the basics first, then move into some comparisons and personal recommendations. Amps are modular weapons that are used to enhance the combat capability of the operator. These amps improve upon the operator's void beam, making them more effective at ranged combat. Apart from enhancing the void beam stats, amps also give the mechanic its own separate energy gauge from the operator's main void energy pool, allowing them to fire their void beam without hindering the effectiveness of their other powers. As amps are modular, they are crafted from 3 components whose interchangeable parts can be mixed and matched to provide different stats and abilities. This allows a player to create an amp with the features they desire using the appropriate component parts. Crafting an amp requires a prism, a scaffold, and a brace. Assuming a player has attained the rank adherent with the quills, an amp can be gilded once it has reached maximum rank. Doing so reduces the amp back to rank 0 for re-leveling, but provides an additional 10% critical chance, 0.5 critical multiplier, and 10% status chance. The process will also prompt you to provide a custom name and will allow you to edit your amp's colors from the operator customization menu on your orbiter. Mastery experience is tied to the weapon's prism, and can only be gained once the amp has been gilded. The mode amp also provides mastery. Now that the basics are out of the way, let's move on. It's worth noting that all testing was done with an unmodified operator, using no focus upgrades, and that all amps were fully gilded. For the sake of convenience, I will be talking first about the primary fire generated by the prisms, then the alternate fire generated by the scaffolds, then the buffs granted by the braces. Also, to avoid sounding like an autistic child, I will be referring to each part as their associated tier. This can be identified by a Tier 1 blueprint costing 2,000 standing, a Tier 2 blueprint costing 5,000 standing, and a Tier 3 blueprint costing 7,500 standing. The Tier 1 Prism is a railgun that acts similarly to the Cisco. It is semi-automatic, has a maximum range of 100 meters, and is pinpoint accurate. It has 30% critical chance, 2.2 critical multiplier, and 10% status chance. It has no punch through, uses 5 ammunition per shot, and can be fired 20 times before needing to be reloaded. The Tier 2 Prism fires a slug-like projectile similar to that of the Archiplasma. It has a maximum range of 30 meters and has unlimited enemy punch-through during flight, but cannot pierce terrain. The beam is also fairly wide and can hit multiple enemies as it passes by. It has a 10% critical chance, 1.6 critical multiplier, and 20% status chance. It uses 10 ammunition per shot, and can be fired 10 times before needing to reload. It also procs impact consistently. The Tier 3 Prism fires a burst of 3 grenades that detonate on impact, similar in mechanics to those of the Tsar. It has no maximum range but is heavily affected by bullet drop. It has a 22% critical chance, 2.0 critical multiplier, and 12% status chance. Each grenade uses 5 ammunition, therefore consuming 15 ammunition per burst. This allows 6 bursts of 3 grenades and 1 burst of 2 grenades before needing to reload. It also deals a tiny amount of self-damage. The Tier 1 Scaffold is a beam weapon that acts similarly to the Optica. A single click begins charging and it will automatically fire upon being fully charged. It has 14% critical chance, 1.6 critical multiplier, and 18% status chance. It has a maximum range of 40 meters, uses 10 ammunition per shot, and can be fired 10 times before needing to be reloaded. The beam has no punch through but is fairly wide and can hit multiple enemies as it passes by. The Tier 2 Scaffold fires a short-range projectile that acts similarly to those of the Sonica, detonating after a short delay or upon collision with terrain. The beam travels a set distance of 10 meters with unlimited enemy punch-through, before detonating in an area with a 5-meter radius. It has a 30% critical chance, 2.5 critical multiplier, and 30% status chance. It procs impact consistently and deals a small amount of self-damage. It uses 10 ammunition per shot and can be fired 10 times before needing to reload. The Dr3 Scaffold fires a continuous beam that automatically targets enemies. It has a maximum range of 25 meters with a potential deflection angle of 45 degrees. It has a 16% critical chance, 1.6 critical multiplier, and 16% status per second. It uses ammunition at 90 rounds per second, meaning it has an uptime of 1.1 seconds. The beam ignores all terrain and can hit enemies from behind cover. It also targets the enemy closest to you, regardless of where you are aiming. The braces are different in that instead of altering firing mechanics, they provide a small buff to the entire amp. The Dr1 brace increases the amp's energy pool by 20, giving it a total of 120 energy. This can be combined with the Max Majori Focus School's Inner Gaze ability, granting the amp a total of 170 energy. The Tier 2 brace decreases the recharge delay from 2 seconds to 1 second. And the Dr3 brace provides a 20% base critical chance increase, pushing the Dr1 Prism from 20% to 24%, the Tier 2 Prism from 10% to 12%, and the Dr3 Prism from 22% to 26%. First and foremost, an amp exists to kill terrorists. Therefore the most important part is that which does so in the most efficient manner possible. Unfortunately, the Dr1 Prism and the Dr3 Scaffold are extremely inefficient for this purpose. So we remove those from the equation, for now. This leaves us with 4 candidates, 2 prisms and 2 scaffolds, so let's compare them. This is footage of me using each tier of amp against the derelist, played back at double speed. I attacked it from full shields down until it becomes vulnerable to actual damage for the first time. I did this 3 times with each amp in an attempt to minimize the impact of human error. Each battle had the amp firing as often as possible, stopping only to avoid the terrorist attacks and to reload. Whenever the weapon ran out of ammunition, I waited for it to refill entirely before continuing. Each clip is edited together from the frame before I begin firing, to the frame after the terrorist's shields turn red. Obviously all attacks are targeted at the same location. If you wish to skip this 3-minute clip, the discussion continues at 10:42. Now that we know without a doubt which part is best suited for killing terrorists, the others in the same category are removed. It seems that the scaffold is more reliant on personal preference. The Tier 1 scaffold is perfectly accurate and deals high damage at a range that is 10 meters longer than our chosen prism. The Tier 2 scaffold deals huge damage in a 10-meter area, but the projectile only travels 1/4 the distance of our prism and deals mediocre self-damage. The Tier 3 scaffold deals lower single target burst damage with a range 5 meters less than our prism, but is almost impossible to mess with. Having said all of this, it's also important to consider how seriously you are going to take the focus farm. I intend to max out Void Siphon and Void Flow on the Zenuric tree, which provides an additional 90% operator energy and energy regeneration, as well as Inner Gaze and Eternal Gaze from the Majorite tree, which grants 40% increased energy and 60% increased regeneration rate for amps. I've found that when farming the Derelist, I rarely encounter any Bomballists without their armor already removed, and when I do, I naturally use the Warframe to break it before finishing them with the operator. Because of this, I've found it more important to be able to quickly target and finish the last portion of their health than to crush them from full life. Personally, I have chosen to use the Tier 3 scaffold, which might surprise you based on how it performed in the demonstration clip near the beginning of the video, though I find that the more I increase my focus, the more enjoyable it becomes. My advice to everyone watching this is, if you intend to put some serious effort into your focus farm, and often find your tastes aligned with mine, consider the Tier 3 scaffold. If you aren't interested in or don't have the time to buff your operator, consider one of the first two. If you would generally prefer a sniper rifle over a shotgun or grenade launcher, choose the Tier 1 scaffold. If you prefer the shotgun or grenade launcher over the sniper rifle, choose the Tier 2 scaffold. The question of which brace to choose is really quite simple. The Tier 1 brace provides a 20% increase in burst DPS, but also a 20% increase in recharge time. The Tier 3 brace provides a critical chance buff so small that you would never even consider equipping it on any other weapon were it a mod. The Tier 2 brace reduces the recharge delay by 50%, therefore increasing your uptime and DPS by that same 50%. The fact that the Tier 2 brace is so powerful negates the existence of the Tier 1 brace. Hopefully this has helped you decide how to build your amp. Now I'm off to build mine. Good luck. Also, yes, I'm damn well aware I misspelled my Tier 3 amp's name, but the stupid entitle function is bugged and I can't change it yet.